Hey everybody, Thunder here in the spirit of Crazy Horse. Violence on our senses. Thought I'd speak about violence today because we're experiencing it on all levels. Both our senses, as in our physical senses or our physical well-being, and in our spiritual sensibility, those senses. And people don't realize that we're surrounded by violence totally, on all different kinds of levels. And the psychological violence that we're experiencing is bad enough, but pretty soon it's going to be in your face. I had an experience today I wanted to relay to you. I went to the store as usual. It's hotter than hell here, but I ventured out anyway and figured we got a little bit of a break in this extreme weather that we're having here. And so I ventured out to the store to stock up a little bit on food and water and some things I needed. And I stopped at my usual place to have my morning coffee and whatever. Sometimes I get a roll, sometimes I get a bagel, whatever. It's a bagel place, and it has a little porch out there, a little overhang, It's in a shopping center, and it's got, your metal tables out there. And I parked my bicycle out there, and to keep an eye on it and sit there and just hope that the hawks that live in a tree nearby in a canyon come by, which they usually do, and I look for them just to relax as much as I can before I go do my little thing with the shopping. That alone will raise your hair on end, the prices. But anyway, as I was sitting there today, eating my cheese Danish, a black guy came by. He looked homeless. He looked to be about 6'8" and maybe weigh about close to 200 pounds. And as he walked by, he glanced at me, and I glanced at him, and he decided to move on. I had a feeling he was going to say something to me, but my vibe is such that if I put out the right frequency, people tend to move on, okay? So he moved on to the next guy over, who was, I'd say a senior. I'm a senior, but he was actually probably younger than me, okay? And had gray hair, and he was sitting there, just a normal citizen. And the guy walked up to him and said, "Give me $5. He didn't say, actually, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The black guy went up to him and said, "Give me $5. And the guy just looked at him, was taken back a little, and decided, well, no, he just said in a timid voice, no, I can't give you $5. I don't even have $1 in change right now, or something to that effect. And the guy called him a fucking liar. You're a fucking liar. And by this time I was like sitting up and starting to take notice and getting ready for action, actually. Then the guy walked inside the place, inside the food place, the bagel place, disappeared, and there was another guy. There was only me and another guy out there. And the other guy was a lot younger than both of us, and he had a baseball cap on, and he was going, "What, are they demanding money from you now, these homeless people?" And I got up and I said, "What did that guy say to you?" And he repeated what he said to me, because I wanted to make sure that I heard what I heard. "Give me $5. That's robbery." I mean, that's intimidation. That's robbery through intimidation. Okay. So I'm like, okay, I start pacing around now, and figured, well, what's going on. And then some lady came outside from inside the bagel place, one of the people that worked there, and the other guy with a baseball cap says, this guy just got approached by a man, and he demanded $5, and the guy was shook up. He goes, is there a security guard around here, or is there this and is there that? Well, yeah, there's a security guard, a black guy that wanders around, and he's there when you don't want him to be in people's face, and then when you want him to be, he isn't there, one of those type things. So anyway, the woman that came out of the place went back in, and the guy with the baseball cap told her, yeah, he's in there inside your place. So she went back in, and about 5 seconds later, or not even that, well, maybe about 30 seconds. 30 seconds later, the black guy with the backpack, the big guy, comes out and looks at the guy that he had asked to give him $5, and he said, you asshole, like the guy, he realized that the guy turned him in or said something about him, and he had a glass of water in his hand, and he threw it in the guy's face. Okay. Well, by this time I was up on my feet and moving in that general direction, next to the guy who was being harassed. But immediately the black guy started making tracks, hauling ass out of there. As he was turning around and continually calling the guy an asshole and whatever. And I'm standing next to the guy, and I'm waiting to see, is this guy going to come back? Because I always take that view, hoka hey, it's a good day to die, whatever. I'd rather die fighting than die of old age, you know what I mean? But this, upon reflection of this later on, oh yeah, and then the security guy showed up, 10 minutes later? So much for that, and then, the other reaction, I was watching this whole thing as reaction and metaphor, or both reaction and metaphor, and what is the metaphor and the reaction, and the guy that was a lot younger than both me and the guy that got water thrown in his face, his answer to the cause of defending your fellow man was whip out his cell phone and start dialing 911. And I just looked at him incredulously. And then he looked at me and he goes, yeah, I know. By the time they get here, the guy was gone anyway. I said, just forget it. But basically what we saw here was, by America's own definition, with their new laws and rules, that they have with the Patriot Act and anti-terrorism and all that good shit. That was a terrorist threat. That was actually a terrorist threat. That's what it would be considered. If you or I did it, we wouldn't get away with it. So, excuse me, still dry here. So I look at this as a metaphor. I always try to look at the big picture here. And I look at it like somebody got a cold water thrown in their face. And again, it was assault. That is considered assault. You can even have verbal assault. It went way beyond being a criminal act. It was a criminal act, But as a metaphor, this man got cold water thrown in his face, and luckily I was there ready to protect or defend or do whatever I had to do. And he didn't get harmed other than that, although he was older. He could have had a freaking heart attack or anything, He was shook up. He kept asking for the security guard. Little did he know that I probably could do 10 times the damage that any security guard can do. And I was ready to do it. Because I am on the streets all the time on my bike. I don't ride around in a car. I don't have a car. Can't afford it. So, I see this shit all the time. I see homeless people all over the place fighting with each other and all kinds of things. Now, when the shit hits the fan, this is a metaphor for people need to wake up. The cold water in the face. I always look at things as a metaphor. That there's violence all around us. There's violence on our senses. There's real violence that could walk right up to you when you're sitting at a restaurant. Perfect example. Now, unless you have that vibe where you're a warrior, you have a warrior vibe. These predators like this will look at people, and if they see fear in their eyes, or if they see any kind of victim mentality, they'll go for it. Now, when he looked at me, he decided to move on to the next guy, to move on. Because I was sitting there in my jeans and my cowboy hat, and I don't look like your normal citizen, let's put it that way. So we do have violence all around us, people, and you could be approached any time on the street or in your car or when you're at a stoplight or wherever. And I'm noticing more and more lately that the disenfranchised people out there, the homeless, and some of them are bums and some of them look like thugs and others look just like down on their luck. There's a whole variety of people. But I noticed, I got the vibe today because I ran into several people out there on the street that it's getting old. In other words, it's like that saying, when you've lost everything, you've got nothing to lose, or I don't know if I'm saying that right, you know. When there's nothing to lose, you lose it. That's what I'm looking for. When there's nothing to lose, you lose it. And these people are losing it. They're losing it, and they're looking at the normal citizen as like targets. Okay. Now, I've talked about when the shit hits the fan, there's going to be looting and rioting, and these people are going to be the first ones to see an opportunity. And there's some mean MFers out there. Okay. This guy wasn't like a gentle giant or anything. He was a violent person. So that's a reflection of our violent society. That's a reflection of the shit we see happening in the world. That's a reflection of our violent government. Okay? And when we turn on the news, all we see is violence. All we see is how the USA backs terrorists, and these terrorists do horrific things like beheading people and killing 200,000 people in a area like in Syria. And we see Ponzi scheme after Ponzi scheme with the financial things, just destroying people's lives, raping, looting, and pillaging. Okay, so you got the outlaws in the government. You got the outlaws in the government that I've talked about before that are just like the outlaws that come riding into a peaceful ranch and rape and kill and loot and the rancher's wife and then make him watch and take him out too. That's exactly what they're doing to you right now. It's exactly what's happening, and it may not be as blatant, but they're slowly trying to kill off the population. They're doing it with all kinds of means. They're depriving elderly people of needed services. They're putting the mentally ill on the street that end up as homeless and deranged and attacking other people, and they don't have any help for them. And they're all over the place, all over the place. People get in their car, see, they go to the store, they get in their car, and they end up at the store in 5 minutes. Not thunder. That isn't me. I got to get on a bike, and it takes me a couple of hours that would take a normal person 15 minutes to go to the store. You think I got it easy in my life? I don't. I don't. Okay, and I'm pushing 70, so that's my story. But it does give me insight as to what's out there. See, I'm not a dumb shit that just gets in his cars at the store in 5 minutes. I have to go through parks. I have to go through lots of city areas with blind alleys and little storefronts that are closed down that people are sleeping in. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic. And any of us could be out there with those people at any freaking time, okay? So, my point here is that you got the outlaws out there in the streets, the real honest-to-goodness outlaws, and then you got, well, I guess they're all honest-to-goodness out. Then you got the banking people they're actually worse than the people on the streets because they're killing people by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands for their agenda. They're killing people over in Syria, over in Libya, over in Iraq, over in Iran, over in Yemen. The list goes on and on and on. And meanwhile, you got all these dumb shit Americans, or let's say sleeping Americans. I'll cut them a little break for a second. Like this guy that was sitting at the bagel place today, they're in La La Land. And it's like that cold water that he got thrown in his face. Incidentally, it did have ice in it too. Is going to be like the cold water that is thrown in everybody's face on the planet, or in the USA and the government and the different countries. They're letting these asshole outlaws rule over them and bring all kinds of carnage. Change the freaking weather. I'm living right now in a war zone weather-wise. I'm living in a war zone anyway because I'm in a city. Incidentally, when I got home right afterwards, I live right above a freeway. I came in the house and closed the door and turned on the air conditioner again. And as I was shutting the door right below me on the freeway, boom, smash, car spun out and hit the fucking wall. And traffic immediately came backed up for a good 2 miles on the freeway. This is the kind of world we live in. It's fast-paced, okay? People get on that freeway and it's boom, boom. It's violence on our senses. Violence on our senses. We're experiencing it every way we look. And it filters down into the way people treat you, like your landlords or people that are business people or whatever. They treat you rude now. There is no more compassion. There is no more, hello, sir, how are you today? There is no more, how can I help you? There's none of that left anymore, people. What is it going to take? It's going to take a cold glass of water in your face to wake you up, to wake people up. It's going to take a cold glass of water thrown in your face in the form of things that you don't even want to imagine, things that you don't even want to consider, things that you don't even want to think about, things that are going to happen overnight. You're going to go to bed one night and wake up Monday morning or whatever, and things are going to be totally changed. Oops, what happened overnight in the headlines? And anything can happen with these liars that we have in office. Just like today, I saw a headline that said, and I posted it, about how the West in the USA, the same people that are yelling and squawking about Putin and trying to demonize Russia, has been found out that they deliberately targeted that Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan. They deliberately targeted it. Deliberately. Okay? Anybody know what that was like, to get a Hellfire missile or a heat-seeking missile up your ass when you're laying in bed in critical condition? They said that there was at least, I don't know how many people have been killed now out of that whole incident. Hundreds? Over 100. And a lot of these people were laying in their bed in critical or really bad condition and were burned alive. Hello? Burned alive. And the USA did this. The USA did it, and they admit they did it. Well, we got intel or information that there was... First they apologized till they came up with a better story. See what liars they are? Do you really see what liars they are? And if people can't see this, it's like they'll make up one story or they'll apologize until they get their little freaking heads together and decide, well, we better say now that there was terrorists in there and that we were informed that there was terrorists. Yet the Doctors Without Borders, who are non-governmental, they're compassionate people, are going to file a criminal act, And when the USA found that out, they said, well, we better say something else right now so that we don't get pulled before a criminal court. So they had to come up with the story that, yeah, we were informed there were terrorists in there when there were no terrorists in there. But they'll make up some story, or they'll plant evidence, or they'll do something to make it look like there were terrorists in there. That's how they work. These people are violent friggin' people. They're murderers. And that's what we have surrounding us. We have murderous, viperous, stealing, thieving outlaws running our country, running the show, and you people let them. And why do you let them? Because you don't have enough courage or cojones to get up like I did and was going to protect that guy. Don't have enough cojones, you don't have the balls to get up and stand up to these oppressive people that are taking your tax-paying money as you slave from morning till night, hoping that someday you'll get some kind of retirement thing, and when you're too old to even enjoy it, that you'll be able to retire and play with yourself. This is the state of affairs that we find ourselves in. It's like, repeat after me. I will not have a mind. I will not think for myself. I will not be a free spirit. I will not stand up to injustice if I see it. It's like the people that see the wounded man on the sidewalk and they walk around him. Like in New York City. And when you see people, I've seen plenty of people, homeless people, laying on sidewalks, in the middle of sidewalks. Nobody knows if they're dead or alive, and what do? They just walk around them. It's getting old, people. It's getting real old, and my patience with the American citizenry, is getting real short. It's getting real short. And if that wasn't bad enough, you got all this stuff happening around us here. Excuse me. The financial collapse, the infrastructure. It's another thing when I'm out riding around on my bike. I see the total infrastructure collapse, holes in the street, ditches dug through the street and then not paved up right, broken water mains. And here they're building all these high-rise corporate bullshit buildings and refurbishing apartments like they did to mine. They didn't really. They replaced everything in here with all the cheapest shit they could find. And so this is how we have violence on our senses. And when I wrote in my book, I wrote a chapter in Listen to the Wind, Speak from the Heart about violence on our senses. I talked about just the everyday violence of like, oh, the dumpsters being slammed down. I mean, this is another thing too. The dumpsters being slammed down out in front, if you're building every day, and the beep, beep, beep of the garbage truck backing up and the guy with the blower out there blowing shit around. What happened to sweeping it up? And cop cars and sirens and people yelling and car alarms going off, and oh my God, it's never ending. The sounds of the freeway, people arguing, loud music, boom boxes everywhere. This is what we live in. This is the chaotic world that we live in. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, you got the ornery, non-compassionate, blood-sucking politicians and government people and bankers all in bed together, all fornicating together. And this is what we live in. This is what we live in. There is no more, happy trails to you. There's no more of that. I watch some of these old Western movies, like I've said before, and like I hear old Western songs, and in the days of like some of these movies were made in 1935, 1945, okay, old John Wayne movies, or Rex Allen, or Wild Bill Elliott or whatever, and it's like, there they are, riding along, and happy trails to you and all that good stuff. And I'm like, are people looking at, do people realize how much things have changed? They realize how much things have changed just since the 50s. Let's just not even say 35 or 40. Let's say the 50s. Okay? A short, 65 years later? And we're in Buck Rogers in the 21st century. I saw an article today where they're saying now that there's alien life that they think they discovered, or seriously, I saw that. I posted it. Scientists, are they preparing us for a false flag of magnitude proportions here? And, there's water on Mars. Yeah, water on Mars. Is it clean? Because pretty soon it'll be polluted. It's like everything else. It's a sad state of affairs, people. Thunder's still looking for that little... I'm stuck in the city. I'm still looking for that little house out on a ranch somewhere that somebody wants to offer a nice, kindly old shaman and give me a little rent break in exchange for whatever. And I'll trade in my bike for a horse, which I'd rather have any day. Do a little ranch work, whatever. Dreams are made of these things, right? Dream on, Thunder. There's just no getting away from it, people. We live in a deplorable violence on our senses world. All the way around, and everybody is just like, that's why they're dumbed down. People wonder why you're dumbed down. Well, because everything you watch is a lie. Everything. I'm talking everything. There is no truth anymore. Everything you watch is a lie. Everything you do is a mistake or against the law. Everything you see is a violent, murderous act. It's Can it get worse than this? What happened to the American dream? What happened to this big American dream, American dream or American nightmare? Well, it's definitely become a nightmare. And unless you're living in Disney World, okay, or La La Land, or someplace in your mind that you've partitioned off. See, the thing that gets me is how people can just keep going on like this, and it's like trying to tread quicksand. Trying to tread quicksand. How long can you tread quicksand? How long can you tread quicksand? It's a good question. Because as you're getting sucked down and as you're walking along getting sucked down, you can't tread quicksand, baby. You can't tread quicksand. And that's what you're trying to do by ignoring all this, and you're going to get sucked right under. Sucked right under. It's going to happen so quick, like that. Like I say, it could be an overnight occurrence. Overnight. And people have been in denial about a lot of things. A lot of things. Just like they're in denial about the weather, and here I'm living in 20 degree above normal weather for the last 2 months. And a major drought in California, and in other parts of the country there's other extreme things going on. Extreme. Okay? So it would be extreme violence on our senses. That's why people are so dumbed down, is because they've been knocked cold by this. And it is Ultra K mind control, and it is NLP, and it is done through every avenue out there. It is like the Matrix. It is like George Orwell's 1984 on steroids. It's all of these things. And I could take a real philosophical view like Alan Watts, and sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do that. But today, when I had that little incident, that's just proof positive to me that people better wake up. People better wake up and readjust their thinking. Put on their thinking caps. Okay. Put on their thinking caps. And think about what they want to do. Is there a way to turn this around? Well, thought is creative. And if you raise it to that high frequency, like I've said before, and you project out there what you want in unison, but see, nobody can get in unison. But you know what? There are people waking up slowly, blink, blink, blink. Their eyes are popping open. And when we have incidents like what's going down with Russia pulling covers on people and letting them know that, yeah, the government is the West has been propagating terrorism and has been since they committed the horrendous act on 9/11. And I don't want to hear any shit about that, because I've researched that thoroughly. Okay. And if you haven't done so, you should look into it. Controlled demolition, killing of 3,000 people. Like I said before, you think 3,000 people is anything after they killed 200,000, like in Syria? Or okay, well, I guess that's the end of Thunder's little rampage, or little thoughts for the day. Your job, should you accept it, okay, your job is to inform people. That's the only way that this could ever be overcome, is to inform people in a courageous manner, not back down. If they call you a conspiracy theorist, or if they call you a troublemaker, if they call you a nut, or if they think you're out of balance, You have to persist regardless, because that's what a warrior does. A warrior is persistent to the end till he goes down fighting, just like the Cheyenne dog soldiers. They wouldn't give any ground. You can't give any ground. You have to stake yourself to the ground like they did. The Cheyenne dog soldier staked himself to the ground with a sash that was tied around his waist, or a piece of leather, so that he wouldn't give any ground when the enemy came at him. He would die right where he was planted, or he would win. Think about that one. You poor, poor people. All right. Said what I had to say today, and conveyed a message, and I hope you get it. I will continue doing this because it is my purpose to do this. What else do I have to do? Suffer in the city with the heat and anyway. Much love to you people. I really care about you all, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. This is Thunder, over and out.